Welcome to the Next Level Casino Careers Show, a series highlighting industry tips and insights from the best minds in the casino and hospitality industry. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Next Level Casino Careers. And today we have a special guest, Laura Fernandez. She is the VP Head of Industry for Travel and Gaming for SXM Media. That's a mouthful, Laura. Welcome to the show.
Oh, Kyle, thank you for having me. And I mean, gosh, I was trying to think like how long we've known each other. It has to at least be 7 or 8 years, right?
It's, for sure. It's at least been that long. I think at least since 2015, but maybe even longer. So yeah, I was really excited that you agreed to do this show today because there's a lot of value I think you could provide. And ultimately with this platform, that's what we're trying to do is just give insights and tips for anybody in the hospitality, casino business and beyond, really. Mm-hmm. So thanks again for joining today. And, as we were chatting earlier, I kind of nerd out personally on a lot of the things in the audio space. So I think for all the marketers out there too, this is going to be an insightful conversation. But to give people more context, rather than me go through your bio and your history, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us a 3-minute, what we like to call origin story, like where you grew up, what your interests were, and then ultimately your career path that led you to do what you do today.
Yes. So I was born in Pennsylvania. I was kind of more of central Pennsylvania, and both my parents were professors, and my dad was actually doing his postdoc, and we moved to Germany. So I actually lived in Germany for 3 years after I was born. And actually, that's the last time I've been to Europe. So I am planning some European trips this year. And then moved around a little bit, but mainly my childhood was in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, so north of Philadelphia, an hour south of New York City. Growing up, I was actually very early on, I was always into journalism, always wanted to be a reporter. And that's one thing that really stuck with me. And that was when I went to college for. And I went to school for broadcast journalism, went to West Virginia University. And I always wanted to be a reporter. So I was interning with TV stations. And then one summer, I actually interned with a radio morning show in Washington, D.C. And that was where I got kind of the audio bug. And I got especially the audio advertising bug, and fell in love with the space. And I took a different route. So instead of becoming a reporter, I went into advertising sales, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
And Laura, you said something there I kind of want to pull on for a little bit.
Yeah.
Audio bug. What's the audio bug? So what was that? Because I think a lot of people, other people said aha moment, or, what was it for you? What was that moment like where you were like, specifically audio, this is why I'm interested in it, kind of expand upon what that kind of thought process was.
Yeah. So I was really into music growing up, and I loved music, and I was never a musician. I played the clarinet, and that's about as far as I went. But I was never a musician, and always into the music aspect. So that was why I interned with the radio morning show. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Because at the time, this was back in 2003, I remember Adam Levine, Maroon 5, they were just getting started. I'm telling you, it wasn't even they came out with the song Harder to Breathe. And I'm sitting there as an intern, and Adam Levine is playing next to me. And I'm like, gosh, this is really cool. And so I was into it from, a content standpoint. And I also, a big reason I got into advertising sales is because I wanted to kind of build my own path. And I wanted to make money. That was definitely something I was like, okay, I had on the side, I think this, Kyle, but I love horses, and it's not a cheap hobby. So always back in my mind when I was growing up, I was like, because I was always hustling since I was like 12 years old and trying to make money to be able to give me that opportunity to ride horses. I know that sounds so lame, but that was my driver. And so I not only loved audio, the environment and like the music and the talk, and I like that from a consumer standpoint, but then I fell into sales because I was like, okay, well then I can kind of the harder I work, the more I'm going to be able to see like kind of the be cliche here, but the fruit of my labor.
Yeah. And, through that process, of working in your career, because you said that, you have a hobby that's expensive, right?
Yeah.
At what point were you like, this is for me? Like, this is not something I'm going to do just to fuel, a passion or hobby of mine. This is something I'm going to commit to my career. Kind of what
Yeah.
was that moment for you?
Gosh, I mean, right when I realized that I wanted to do advertising sales, because that's my career. And then you also need to be passionate about what you're selling. And um, for me, I felt like actually sales was somewhat like journalism is you're meeting new people, you're figuring out what they're trying to accomplish with their marketing campaign. So you're interviewing them.
Right.
And so I had that natural like tact of like, I like to talk to people. And as much as I love to just like chill out and be with my horse, I really enjoy talking to people. So I figured, okay, if I'm not going to go the journalism route, this is a really great alternative and can also drive me to get the life that I want to have.
Yeah. So Laura, I know you spent some time as an internship, right? That's how that started.
Yes.
Kind of walk us through your career arc from that moment to, and then also for the viewers and people listening, just, what you do now today.
Yeah. So, I mean, internships are key. I did work actually straight through. I mean, I've been working since I was 12 years old, no joke. And mainly in the hospitality industry because it was kind of a little bit similar because I worked in restaurants because I'm like the cooler you were, the better server you were, the more tips that you got. So I had that mentality in my head. And I was doing a lot of internships with TV stations, radio stations, because it all goes back to networking and getting the experience. And I mean, I worked at BMG Sony, a record label, because again, I was really into music. But, I was not going on these meetings with like, Justin Timberlake that they handled at the time. I was in the back, like building boxes to ship posters out. But I've always felt it, but I met some amazing people. It all goes back to the networking because when I was ready to make the launch into advertising sales, I had all these internship mentors that I had, and they were able to help me really like get myself prepped for the interview process. So I got into advertising sales. My first job, I've actually only had 2 jobs since college. My first job was doing radio sales. So I come from a terrestrial radio background, worked at CBS Radio for 7 years. And then Pandora, had, launched maybe about like 5 or so years before I took the job back in 2012 or 2013. But it was an app that just started selling audio units and audio ads. And so what Pandora's strategy was like, okay, we're going to go into all the top markets and scoop up the top radio rep and have them sell Pandora. And so I live in Las Vegas, and that's how I got the job at Pandora. And that was, but I love, like, I always go back to, and again, from the marketing and advertising side, the reason I stay in this industry is not only my passion for audio, music, talk, now podcasts, but for me, from the advertising side, I'm proud about the advertising environment that marketers' message is served in. I think it's a really good environment and makes people, you think about how music makes you feel or how listening to audio, it's typically you get a little bit of visualification and you feel good. I love yes, I like Instagram and everything, but it doesn't give me that same warm and fuzzy feeling that listening to one of my favorite songs does.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, now you have a big title, right? Head of industry for travel and gaming. In
Yeah.
a nutshell, what does that encompass?
Yeah. So I started, I will tell you, like, so I started as a sales executive. That was my first job. I was, if for any marketers that are, tuning in, I was the rep. And I started closing and working, not closing, but working with a lot of big casino brands in Las Vegas. But I realized that at that time, 41 states had legalized brick and mortar casinos, and there was a different story to tell. And so that's where we were very early on. We launched a casino gaming vertical, and that was the first iteration. And I did that for about 5 years. And then I was like, okay, well, what's next? And the next iteration was travel tourism. So it's a little interesting because my background really is casino and gaming. And now for my role now is I work with the sales executives on their strategy. I'm the one that's speaking at conferences, evangelizing audio in the space. I will tell you, if you know, with anything sports betting right now and iCasino, there's a lot of legal parameters. So I spend a lot of time with our legal teams because now I was legacy Pandora, but SiriusXM acquired us about 4 years ago. And then we just recently, about a year or so ago, acquired Stitcher, podcast app and content creator, as well as distribution channel. And then we have exclusive partnerships like NBC Universal, SoundCloud, and then Audio Check, which produces Crime Junkie, which is the top podcast of all time.
Wow, there's a lot there. I want to ask a question for maybe a marketer or someone in the partnership space who either has an audio strategy or has maybe a partnership with you or some other streaming platform. And they're just want to know, like, one, should I maybe activate this? Should I pursue this as an opportunity? So you can take this question wherever you want, but make the case for why you should definitely have a streaming audio partnership and have kind of an audio strategy going within your marketing efforts.
Yeah, I think of it first from a scale standpoint. I mean, you have 163 million people that are listening to digital audio. People spending 4 hours a day with audio. And so you have the scale, you have the time spent, and you also look at all these activities that you're doing when you're listening to audio. It's running, working out, you're driving, whether you're gaming, all these activities that you're doing, visual media typically can't reach you. And I always think of audio as such a great complement to your TV strategy, because what's the one thing that you're probably not doing when you're watching TV? You're probably not listening to music or a podcast, but you are on social, you are playing around with your phone. So not only is the scale, the time spent there, but also you have this great complement to TV. And, really quickly, one thing I wanted to, because I know that we're talking a lot about careers and growth within a company. I will tell you that outside of my first job as sales executive, the first iteration of casino gaming, then I actually had casino and tourism, where I focused on the destination marketing organizations, then travel tourism, and now travel tourism, all gaming from the gambling side. I pitched myself for each one of those roles. Like, I built the business plan. I took it to my leader, who then, I built the plan for this. So there was no role that was like I applied for. I built each one from scratch. And I think, when you're working with even a big company like a SiriusXM, if you can put together a good business plan and rationale and support how it's going to, whether drive revenue, because I think that's what we're all about. I think that's so important. But that's one thing, like and I did it all also from Las Vegas. I mean, I don't live in New York. I don't live in LA. And I was able to build that from scratch and do it remotely too.
So Laura, that's a great point. And so if somebody, your first business plan that you put together, where did you get the chops, or where did you get that skill set? Was that school? Was that mentors? Kind of when you first...
It was a combination mentors. And, you know, I probably wouldn't even want to show anyone that first presentation I had to pitch a casino gaming vertical. But that was, I always believe that you just got to like move forward and ask. And if you have an idea, like pitch it. And I always am of the mindset of like fully living a life of abundance and like just keep pushing. And I do sleep on some things, but for the most part, I like to put, I like to write it down, and I like to think of like how I can grow, not only myself personally, but then move the business forward as well.
Yeah, I'm sure that fear probably prevents a lot of people from doing that, right? They probably think within themselves, there's an opportunity, whether that's a business plan or whether that's an idea. But the fear of rejection, or the fear of, well, I don't have that skill set yet, right? And I think that's key, that I think ultimately can apply to any career, is I think your leaders and mentors, people will notice that you have ambition. And even if it's not perfect, that's somebody that you want to promote. That's someone you see potential in. So yeah, I think that's such a key insight that you said there. Because I think so often we're hung up on it being perfect that it cripples us from action.
No, I really don't believe that it has to be perfect, and just start doing. And I mean, I will tell you through the whole process that I've been going through, because we just started allowing gambling ads to run nationally on Sirius XM as well as Stitcher, from the show level perspective. So they're all national ads. I'll tell you, the disclaimers are astronomical, but you know, I didn't know what I was doing. And you kind of learn as you go. But if you have that motivation and that sense of urgency, and you're just going to keep driving forward, you're going to figure it out.
Absolutely. I wrote down this quote the other day, and I've been using it a lot.
Yeah.
And it was, not to go deep on anybody, but it was Tony Robbins, and it was, complexity is the enemy of progress.
Yep.
I was like, that is just so true, you know?
Yep.
And I love that you're hitting on that. If someone's, you know, thinking about getting into the audio space or advertising space, sales, kind of the realm of which you've worked for, what are some necessary qualities you think someone's got to have to kind of let them judge for themselves if this is a career for them?
You know, talking about like we'll talk specifically about like the digital audio space. And if you want to get into sales, you definitely like want to chat with people. I think that's like you want to have that interaction with people. You're a good listener though at the same time, because you do need to listen to what the marketers' needs and requests are. Also, you have to be a self-starter. I know that's like, I say a lot of cliche things, but you really do. You have to be proactive. You have to have a sense of urgency. You have to have an appetite though to learn. And I think there's a couple avenues to get into the space, like right outside of college. And right outside college, you could go, it's called the client services route, where you actually help manage the campaigns on the back end. But then in tandem, you also work with the sales executive and the brand to bring their campaign to life. But then there's so many avenues, like, you know, I look at like, we're looking for design support. We're looking for sales support when it comes to development of like the bigger brand ideas, consumer marketing. because we have a consumer marketing strategy where it's like we're talking about SiriusXM externally, but then we also have a B2B marketing strategy where the way that we come to market, SXM Media is our combined sales org across the consumer-facing brands of Sirius, Pandora, and Stitcher, and then all our exclusive advertising partnerships. But like we have a whole B2B team. So there's so many different facets to digital audio and just audio brands as a whole.
You know, there's so many facets. I want to go back into kind of that side, which is, I think from the partnership opportunity, my goodness, going back to what you said earlier, another thing I think is number one, just the options, right? So the way that you can target via your audio strategies and make sure that you have the right message with the right audience. It's unlike any other, or it's one of the best in my opinion, as far as what you can do in the audio space compared to spray and pray tactics. Another thing too is it's passive, right? As a consumer, I love audio. I love podcasts. I love, music platforms like Pandora because I could do it while I work out. I can do it while I am commuting, right? I wish I could say I was more of a reader. I read from time to time, but podcast kind of fills that void. Yeah. I can feel like I'm getting, I'm growing in one form or the other, whether that's educationally or, nutritional, whatever, right? And it's passive. I could do it while I'm driving to work. So I'm doing two things at once. So I think just the opportunity has just opened up in such a way. I wonder if you wanted to comment on the trends in the audio space and how actually the opportunities have increased.
Yeah, I mean, audio is awesome because it doesn't interrupt your daily life. And I really am of the mindset, I don't know if I've said this to you before, but like, if you're not like taking a break visually in between meetings or just even at the end of the day, like for me, like sitting on the couch in the evening and listening to a podcast, not having the TV on, is exactly what my eyes like need. And my brain does too. Cause it's like, there was like, gosh, I can't remember who said this, but, it's that whole theater of the mind. And that's what just is so nice to like take a break from like all this like visual media we're consuming all through the day. But, when you're thinking, you know what, Kyle, I went on a tangent about your daily life, but what was the original question?
No, it's like, how have trends we're going to go all over the place.
I know. I was like, oh shoot. I was like, I don't know what the original question was. Sorry, Kyle.
No, don't worry. I have so many different angles when I take this, but what I was trying to get at is just trends.
Okay.
I think opportunity has changed within the audio space, at least as an observer. Yeah. Right? I see people with the Bluetooth so regularly now, like in transit or, during the holidays. I don't think people own a lot of Christmas music. I think they want curated playlists, right? So from your end, being so close to the industry and being a leader in the industry, kind of what has changed? Because I think there's actually more opportunity and the value is actually greater than compared to like 9 years ago.
It is. I mean, it's generation audio right now. And I think with, the devices, the accessibility of where you can listen to audio. I mean, you think of like the rise of the connected home devices with Amazon Alexa and Google Home. And that's where I do believe like that the accessibility has been huge. But then also when you're looking at like podcast and the consumption that's happening there, I mean, it's growing exponentially. And there really has been a shift of like, yes, it's still a large audience. My husband is actually a radio morning show host, so I'm okay to say this about AM/FM radio, but there really is a shift happening of people consuming, whether it's satellite or streaming in car with the technology that's there. But podcast by far has been like the biggest growth category, and we're investing heavily into it. And I also, but still the number one thing that people are listening to is still music. And I think that just having that accessibility to listen wherever you want, on whatever device has been huge.
Yeah, and at least for me, I think maybe it's Malcolm Gladwell or somebody else, but there is something about choice and freedom, which is great, but there's also something great about not feeling overwhelmed.
Yes.
And that's what's so great about platforms like Pandora and all the platforms that you offer within SXM is, you guys have professionals and DJs and people who make awesome playlists, right? That takes all that thinking out of it for me, because there is such a thing as too much choice,
Yeah, and I think that was, I mean, if we go to Pandora, and I mean, the Music Genome Project, I mean, talk about like geeking out about the Music Genome Project. I mean, we were the first audio streaming app, and it was personalized radio. And where the algorithm, assigned up to 450 traits per song. And it was also built from musicians. I mean, it wasn't like it was people on our team went to Berkeley, Juilliard. I mean, it's musicians themselves that are mapping out the DNA to each song. So you have that total personalized radio listening experience. And I think that algorithm is so special and so unique to Pandora, because I mean, you can set it, and obviously we do encourage people to thumbs up, thumbs down, and create even more of that personalized experience. But that new music discovery, I mean, I talk to people, they're like, Pandora from a music discovery standpoint, you can't beat it. You can't beat that algorithm, because if you put it on your Sonos speaker and like playing it at a party, nothing touches it.
100%. And there's something too about that, right? When you discover new music,
Mm-hmm.
and then you want to share it with a friend, and then your friend's
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, they've been around for a while. And that engagement, that joy, I think that is just so valuable. Laura, I want to go back to something you said about podcasts, because maybe you have data on this, or maybe you just have an opinion, but why do you think those have exploded? If you had to ask people for a crowd of 100, maybe in 2015, how many people actively listen to podcasts, there would have been some hands that gone up. But I guarantee if you did that same group of 100 people now, by far majority hands would go up as far as listen to podcasts. So why do you think there's just such a demand for that today?
I think it's a combination. I mean, people go to podcasts for the most part to learn something and to be entertained. But I mean, talk, gosh, I mean, it's been around since it was the first form of entertainment. People sitting around the radio and listening to, a crime show back then. I mean, the top genre for podcasts is still crime. I mean, that partnership that we have with Crime Junkie, the largest podcast of all time produced by Audio Chuck. I mean, it's millions and millions of downloads. And I think it's to learn something, and it's to have that visual break. And it's also because podcasts don't interrupt your daily life. I mean, you can go on a 10-mile run, not me, but like, and listen to a podcast and be entertained. So you could sit on your couch at night. I mean, think of like when you jump in the car. I mean, talk about like, over the past 2 years, that road trip resurgence of the family road trip. What are people doing when they're listening, when they're in the car? They're listening to audio. They're listening to either an audio book or a podcast or music.
And another thing I think plays into that too, and we've discussed several of them.
Yeah.
But, through social media and everything else, we've always been told short-term, short content. That's it. Real quick bites, right?
Yep.
I think there's a demand for just long form general conversation. And even if it's not perfect,
Yes.
right? As we're doing now, we've had a couple flubs, but I think people crave for that just kind of real, genuine conversation. I feel like that's been lost the last few years. So I know for me, some of the ones I listen to, they kind of drag a little bit, but it kind of feels like when they're at their best, you're sitting on the couch with them.
Yes.
Listening to a conversation.
You can just see the passion. I mean, when Conan O'Brien does a live show, I mean, it sells out. It's larger than some like top concerts.
Yep.
I mean, that speaks to the engaged audience. And you look at every celebrity, I mean, has a podcast.
Yeah.
It's just an avenue, because it is like, to your point, Kyle, you're like, you become friends with these hosts, and you feel that comfort. It is sitting around, like whether it's like the campfire or something, like you're chilling, you're hearing them talk, and you feel that connection. And that's where I believe so much in host-read ads, because they come from a trusted source, and everyone is so passionate about it. That's why I still believe in like morning drive radio, because there's still some really, talented hosts. So if like someone was going to do an AM FM campaign, I would say that would be the main thing I would do. I would do an endorsement with the morning show host and call it a day. But like, that's where, these podcast hosts and the ads, and it's tough. It's to get them to talk about the brand, and like, then you have the consumers that are just like into it because the host is like endorsing it.
Yep, absolutely. I want to touch on that to provide value for the marketers out there, the folks in advertising. From your perspective, if somebody wants to get the most out of their audio partnership, say they're partnered with you, what are some things that definitely they should be doing, or things that they should think about to make sure that they're maximizing their audio partnership?
First off, it's really like understanding who their audience is that they're trying to reach, and understanding what they're trying to accomplish. So those are like two questions I asked right off the bat, of like who they're trying to target, and then what they're trying to accomplish. Is it branding awareness? Is it app downloads? I mean, really understanding their KPIs is key. And then that's where we start building out the recommendation. If it's, if we have a branding and awareness play, we could run some, first impact or first impression display banners, like right when they launch on the app. But then we could also expand if they have a national presence on satellite or Stitcher from the show level perspective. But it's always goes back to asking who their audience is and what the goals they're trying to accomplish.
Okay. Could we try running through a scenario?
Yeah.
So let's just say, I'm throwing one out there. We've actually talked about this, but this is not Yamava. This is not I'm just throwing, because I think a lot of people are struggling with recruitment right now. If you want to run a recruitment campaign, and let's just say that you want to focus on the Latin audience in Spanish speaking, maybe not all Spanish speaking, right? But that's kind of your audience. Age range could be vast, but you've really missed the opportunity at maybe from an audio perspective, reaching out to those folks. So
what service?
What do you mean by what service?
What are you trying to hire for?
Let's just say frontline positions. So let's just say housekeeping, hotel, just because I think a lot of people in hospitality are struggling to fill, looking at all of the recent data, our industry struggled the most to bring people back, right? So it's important that, we could actually do a whole subject on what's creative, but I want to throw a real life scenario out to you so that you can kind of, for those kind of wondering, like, I want to get into audio, but I have no idea as far as where the placement should be. Should I be on podcasts? And possibly they work through their agencies, but since I have you here today.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. So I would first off figure out we'll just say, LA County is target. So I would look at all geo-targeting type geo-targeting platforms, or the platforms that have the ability to geo-target. And we can target by ethnicity. So that's a piece that we definitely include. Also, I would narrow the age targeting a little bit, but I would recommend utilizing Pandora, SoundCloud, and our SXM podcast network. We can age, gender, geo, category target. So maybe we go into casino enthusiast with our targeting, maybe people that are passionate about casinos or hospitality. But I would just I would go across from a music standpoint, Pandora and SoundCloud, 21 to like 54. I would just keep the targeting tight. And then I'd utilize a combination of maybe just our streaming everywhere product. So it doesn't really matter where people are listening. And then I would also do the SXM podcast network, and I would category target that, because one thing that's interesting is that the way to buy podcasts, you have the like the show level buying where there's the host read ads, and then you have the kind of everything else from a podcast network standpoint. But I want to point out there's always this misconception that we need to go and have Conan O'Brien read the do the host read ad. But if we want to geo target, we have this mass audience, and it doesn't need to be this, show that gets millions of downloads, but it could be still a show that has a very engaged audience. And then we geo target people to dynamically serve an ad to them.
So those that's something I'm just curious about. The host read, ads, like let's just take a Conan, right? If you wanted to do that, I imagine that's far more expensive. And I imagine that there's some nuances and contingencies, because I know a lot of podcast hosts will only read certain ads. They won't even touch certain if it doesn't apply to their market, right? But with that partnership, are those kind of opportunities available? Because I think something that I'm taking from this conversation, and I know you're big on, is collaboration. And that's why I want to run through that scenario, because I think that's important for listeners. Is if you are going to partner with anybody, but for today's sake, in the audio space, I think it's important that you kind of tell them the needs of the business, right? And really collaborate with someone. And if you work with an agency, that's fine, but make sure that everyone is on the same page as far as what those expectations are. That way that plan can be tailor-made for your needs. And that's kind of what I'm getting. Is that right?
Yeah. And because that's where it all goes back to, I mean, even if I give you, a kind of role play a little bit of like what kind of campaign recommendation, it's like, how are we going to measure it? I mean, that's one of the benefits with digital audio, is going back to the measurement and just making sure that we're accomplishing those goals. But yeah, from the podcast side, you have the show level buying perspective, and then you have the network. There's that, I was saying the misconception is like out of the top 1,000 podcasts that get millions and millions of downloads, that only equates to 1% of the total podcast listening universe. So that's where it's like, you really do want to like expand your reach with the network.
Yeah. And, something we touched on a little bit about the targeting, but once again, for the listeners, I think it's powerful that your message can be tailor-made to that audience. I always have such a better brand impression and I don't find it creepy at all. Like if I'm working out and I'm listening to a workout playlist, the fact that they say something like, you're up early, you're running, you're a go-getter, that's why you should brand X, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're cooking, right? Or you listen to cooking podcasts and they hit you with you're busy, cooking meals, blah, 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 blah. I just think the opportunity there, and I feel like so many brands don't utilize that. And I'm just like,
no, it's so, and that's where it's like, everything needs to go back to, it's like, okay, understand the audience, understand what we're trying to accomplish. And then the creative is absolutely key, because everything we're talking about they're all audio ads, like host read, host talking about it, or a branded spot. But it's like, you just need to make sure you customize it to the platform it's being served, because there could be a different message to someone listening on a connected home device, and also the context it's being served in. And to your point about the cooking podcast, and like contextually have that ad talk to someone that is cooking.
Yeah, and it breaks the clutter. And I think as someone who worked in advertising for a long time, that's ultimately what we're all searching for, right? I mean, attention is the asset. But so often, we're focused on the impressions, which are great, but which impressions broke the clutter? Which audio spot actually resonated with me? Even if I don't go apply for that job or click that link, like it resonated in my mind either, wow, that was creative, or I'm thinking differently about that brand. There's just such opportunity there. It's not the quantity, but the quality.
Yep, I completely agree.
But on the back end, it takes more work though, too, right? So I get it from that angle, because now
Yeah.
you're writing 5 scripts and having multiple audiences. So there's more work involved.
It is, but you got to go back to the personalization, and advertising is so key.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So this is a random question I had, but going back to kind of the career side, what do you like most about your position now?
Oh, I am very passionate about the company. I
Okay.
will tell you that. I love the company culture. That's always, through the years, I've had other conversations with other companies and brands. I always think that you do need to talk to everyone. Not everyone, but I can't we can't beat the culture that we have. And also the people that I work with, the longevity. I mean, I've had pretty much the same boss for the 9 years I've been at the company. I think we had a quick 2-year hiatus, but I've had the same leader for 9 years. I've had the same. I mean, all. I mean, gosh. I mean, majority of people I started with 9 years ago are still there, and I think that speaks to the company. So it's the culture, it's the people, and then the brand. I mean, I am really passionate about the brand and the consumer facing brands. And I'm proud to say that I work there. And I'm also proud to present these advertising opportunities to brands, because I believe in what I believe in the ad environment, and I also know that they have, and we have proven out that they actually work. We have a lot of good case studies, so that all those things really make me love SiriusXM as a company.
You said culture, and I kind of got a hint of what you said there, as far as one of the things that you can look at is just the tenure and people staying, the loyalty from team members. But as people weigh their kind of careers now more than ever, what is something that, from your perspective, you're in a good work culture? Like, what are some key things that you can kind of point to? And probably we could compare and contrast that versus, maybe you're not in a great culture.
Yeah, I think it's the collaboration. The cross team collaboration, and everyone willing to help out. And if I need support, people are there to give it to me. It's also like how you talk to people and how you treat people. I mean, down to like remembering, your birthday. I mean, we celebrate also every anniversary. I mean, that we send a note to any, like, my 9 year was just a month ago. My boss sent me and CC'd everyone that I really closely work with a note, happy anniversary. I actually, like, I spoke to this other company, and I remember I was just spoke to the hiring manager, and then I spoke to someone else that reported into the hiring manager, and they said, I was like, so, what are some pros? What are some cons about this person? And it's like, well, just one of the cons is he never remembers birthdays or anniversaries. And I was like, cool, because that's not the type of, but I think that means something. And that's where the culture is so solid and so amazing at SiriusXM, because we do remember those things.
I think that's a key one. And, I think everyone wants to be validated and recognized. I think knowing someone's birthday, and I think that's key. Actually, that's one I'm going to write down. I think that's a great one. I got to ask you a personal question. So horse riding, I know that, but for people listening, like, what role has having that consistent hobby throughout your life played in your career? I'm just curious to know.
It is a passion of mine. And I mean, I'm a very, I really can say I'm a very passionate person. I'm big into charities too. on the board for I have Crohn's disease. So Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, I'm on the board. I am very big into mental health. So I'm actually joined the board for National Alliance for Mental Illness. So that's a big piece of this. I really believe that I figured out all the elements of my life that I need to be successful and to live that life of, I know that's so cliche to say, abundance. But I really am always thinking of that. Like, how can I live a life of abundance? And these are the elements that I need. And horses are a part of that. Horses are so special. I could talk about horses probably for another 5 hours, but they teach me so much about patience and kindness. Because if you do know horses, you can never like run up to them guns a-blazing and be like, ah, like, and I think that horses have given me so much, character development is mainly based upon the type of person that you have to be around them. And another big thing is not only patience and kindness and empathy, but they also teach me to be in the present moment. And
say that you beat me to it.
yeah, the present moment. It's the only thing that I can do. Actually, there's a lot of things now I can do. I've really worked hard on that. But if you are not thinking about that moment when you're riding, you're screwed. So, like the horses feel everything that you're going through.
Yeah. And I think that's a good tip for everyone is life of abundance. I love that. I wrote that down. But then also, finding those opportunities of whether that's horseback riding or yoga or time with the family or whatever it is, because I know on your end and just in casino and hospitality, there's a tend to burn out. Even if you are passionate about what you do, it is possible. But having those kind of things that ground you outside of,
you need that. And, I also I don't know where I heard this, but it's like I do break apart my day into like 3 kind of sections. And I will tell you, if I'm having a day that's like, because I'm not saying not every day is perfect, and I will tell you, I can get low for a second, get frustrated, and I do a quick reset. I know this sounds, and one of the benefits, I know you're working in an office, so this is a little harder, but I sometimes, if I get like, I will legit like wash my face and like reset and like step outside and like then restart everything. And that's helped me a lot, especially over the past couple of years where we've had to work from home and things are a little bit more heated sometimes.
Yeah. When did you pick up that kind of exercise?
Oh my gosh, during the right when we started everything work from home, and I do work East Coast, West Coast hours. So I wake up at 4:30 every day. And we have a lot of East Coast brands. And so that's where I was like, oh my gosh, it was like noon. And I was like, my eyes were going cross-eyed. And I'm like, you know what? I have 30 minutes. I'm going to wash my face. I know this for all the women or guys listening. I'm like, I'm telling you, it's the most refreshing thing to do is wash your face and restart.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of similar, and obviously you can't do it, but like I found jumping into a cold pool is like the ultimate reset.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's painful, but once you do it, it's just like it's.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I have friends that do that every Sunday as a family.
Wow.
Every Sunday as a family, they do that. Is like it's literally like restart. Get away the Sunday scaries, and that's what they do.
That's an awesome family tradition.
I know, and they have a 6-year-old daughter, and she does it.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's cool.
Yeah, maybe I need to. I don't think my daughter would go for it. My son probably would. My 4-year-old might. He's crazy like that. But Laura, thanks again for joining. I have just a few more questions for you.
Yeah.
I like to ask this question, right? I know you still have a long, bright future ahead of you, but looking backwards, right? Anything that sticks out as far as man, I wish I would have known this when I first started my career, or maybe early when I was in my career. Is there anything that you kind of looking back that you would tell to your younger self?
I definitely not to be so quick to respond. Um, I like and sit on some things, especially a little bit more of a complex ask or a complex situation, to sit on it. I am very big of like, I do not like any email in my inbox. And my younger self would rapid fire responses where I wasn't always completely thoughtful. Um, and so that would be what I would tell myself back then, is to be patient a little bit more. And um, that's one of my biggest things, is reacting too quickly.
And I think that probably stems from a good place, right? Because I think that's a valuable tip, because I think most people think that if I don't respond right away, they're going to think I'm not responsive or I'm lazy or fill in the blank, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah.
saying confirming receipt and then plug it into your draft folder and know that you have to answer it later on.
Yep. You know, if I had to ask you three things someone can do right now, this is next level casino careers, what could they do, no matter what their career is? Three things they could start doing right now to help take their career to the next level.
Network. I do make a conscious effort. I've gone a little bit out of sync with it, but I like to talk to a new person each week, someone that I haven't spoken to, even if it's a new brand, or even if it's like someone that works at another publisher. I try to talk to new people pretty regularly. So networking is huge. I also do believe that, trying to like map out what you want to get accomplished, like put it all on paper of like everything that you want to get done, and then figure out from a tactical standpoint, like how you can get it accomplished. And then also, maybe this ties back into networking, and then like obviously mapping out your goals. But I just think having that mentor and finding that mentor, and you can have multiple ones, but really like leaning on them of like, this is what I want to do. And, I'm adding a fourth, being proactive of like, if you are looking at a new career opportunity, have everything ready to go. Say there's a new job posting, instead of just emailing your friend that works at that place and saying, hey, are there any openings for me? Show them what you want to apply for, send the resume, and have everything ready to go and serve it to them on a silver platter.
I love that. And that actually ties in earlier to what you said, which is like the business plan example, right? And just showing ambition. I think that's going to go a long ways. Laura, I did have one more question I didn't answer, but I'd be curious to know, because you work in travel and tourism and also casinos. Mm-hmm. Working in this space for a while now, being on the partnership side, is there anything that you've learned about the casino or travel space that is kind of surprising to you?
I don't know if it's surprising, but maybe something I'm really proud of is how resilient, this industry is. And I love, 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 love this industry. I will tell you, when I say resilient, my eyes legit start like watering up because of what the industry has gone through. But looking at that bounce back and what we've been able to do, and the passion people have for the casinos, the brands, and how we all were united. The whole travel and gaming and hospitality industry has been just phenomenal. And I remember, because we had 12 verticals at the company, and, during everything, everyone, all hands calls was like, Laura Fernandez vertical, like, because obviously people are not spending. And I just kept saying, like, this industry is going to bounce back, and it's such a resilient, awesome industry to be a part of, even if I'm not directly in those jobs or in that career, I feel like I am a part of it, and I couldn't imagine doing any other vertical but this.
Absolutely. And that you are a part of it. Let me say that.
Yeah.
Working with you, having a partner like you who you could just call and just talk about, and whether that's exploring your partnership or just advice, I know you're always there. So, Laura, thanks again for joining the show and providing insight. I'm sure we'll do it again soon. But once again, thank you so much for joining us here today on the show.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Kyle.
All right. Thank you, Laura. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Check out more episodes on nextlevelcasinocareers.com.